it was so refreshing to see a Western done in a classic style. And I would think as a director, I mean, you had to feel like a kid in a candy store working in this genre.
Well, I did, and I'm very excited about the fact that people got it. I mean, you know, there was a danger when I decided to really, you know, go all the way back, and it's not even back to the 80s. I think I went back to almost like the 60s, the 50s and 60s type of Western that you know, it feels old and dated, and no one will get it, and so you know that was my fear, but there was something inside me too. I love those movies. I grew up with those films, and that's the kind of movies. And even a film like Unforgiven for me was a throwback to those movies. So that's the kind of movie. I didn't want to make this sort of revisionist modern Western. I really wanted to go back to those films because there was something about them that was just character based, which I loved. Sure.
And when you were discussing whether it was the development of the script or the look of it with your cinematographer and production team, were there specific films from that period of time in the 50s and 60s that you used as reference points?
Not really. No, it's just not the way I work. I mean, I watch so many movies. I'm a movie fanatic. I watch almost a movie a day. That's how many movies I watch. And so somewhere in my head, they're all there. So, you know, when I come to just sort of design my own thing, I think I'm taking from those movies, but I don't specifically see pictures or look at movie clips. I don't work that way. I just sort of, you know, just instinctively, I talk about what I want and what I want to see, and then that's how we sort of came up with what we came up with, which again was a very classic, simple look.
Well, if I'm not mistaken, I think you shot this in Alberta. And it's beautiful country, and it's beautiful in the film. And this might be a stupid question, but I'll try it on anyway. But with the Western genre, establishing kind of a feeling of environment and a sense of place is a major component of that genre. So, what were the conversations in kind of implementing that environment in a way that was complementary to the narrative and not distracting to it? Does that make any sense?
Well, I'm happy you brought that up because I was very, very conscious of it and made sure that everyone that was involved in the look of the film was conscious of it too. You know, but with our first decision being to shoot a very wide screen look, which was important to me. The fact, I don't know if you noticed, the first frame of the film is you know, this giant landscape with this very small man in it, and the last frame of the film is this giant landscape with a small man, you know, riding into the forest, and basically that was the bookend because the land was a very important part of their lives, and in fact the land is what everyone's fighting over in the story to start off with. So it was really important for me to incorporate that, and even all our sets, for example, we didn't have sets in studios. All of those interiors were shot in those actual buildings, and so part of what I wanted was to make sure that when you looked out a window, you weren't looking at a backdrop. You know, you weren't looking at a projection. You weren't looking at green screen. You were actually looking at the town. The saloon was the biggest challenge. When you were at that town, even though there were two people standing at the bar talking, if you look out that door, the whole town is going about their business. There are horses going by, and you know, so it was inside outside. You know, their world, unlike ours now, where we kind of cocoon ourselves, their world and the land was all one. And so we made a real effort to do that, to really combine the two together.
Do you think that the appeal of the Western genre, what makes it unique, do you think it's the same today as it's always been? What it's kind of triggering in us?
You know, I think it is. I think we get attracted to it because there's a human element that I think we've lost in a lot of films. You know, for many reasons, technology being one, CGI being another, and the fact that, you know, if you wanted to tell something to someone in a Western, you actually have to go and look them in the eyes and tell them. You didn't phone them, you didn't text them, you didn't get in touch with the computer. And so there's more human interaction. I actually even joked the fact that you could actually look at your transportation in the eyes too back then, which was a horse. So I mean, there was just more connection than there is. So because of that, all the noise is gone. You know, the Westerns are very stripped down. They really become about the people and the relationships. And there's something really, I think, basic to us as film goers that we connect to that right away. You know, and,
yeah.
and even the best movies are able to give you all that other stuff and still get down to the human level. But I think because Westerns don't have that, they're just so simple in their storytelling, which is what I liked. And then the interesting thing becomes, we know what's going to happen in a Western. I mean, there was never in my mind when I read the script any doubt that John Henry was going to pick his guns up. And I knew that the audience would know that at the end of this movie, he was going to pick his guns up and save the day. And I think even knowing that, it's still satisfying for the audience because the character relationships are so good that even though you know what's going to happen, I think you know what's going to happen in every single Western you see, it's still entertaining. And that's the challenge of it.
Yeah. I want to ask you, speaking of relationships, I want to ask you about your relationship with some of your actors and what you observed from them. I mean, the major point of note with this film is obviously it's the first film in which Keifer and Donald Sutherland share scenes together, which gives this movie a whole other layer of meaning and entertainment value. You were well aware of Keifer's working methods, but did you find that they both worked in a similar way?
Yes, that's a great observation. They really did, you know. And again, it's not a unique way, but it's a way of many good veteran actors. You know, they come prepared. They're ready to listen. They're ready to help each other. I mean, it's all the things that veteran actors bring to the game, and you know, they're very serious about what they're doing and being in it at the moment, and all of those things. And they were both identical. I mean, I had worked with Keifer obviously for 7-8 years, so I knew exactly how he worked. But then as I started working with Donald, even from day one, I realized there was no real difference. I mean, they really, you know, without even having ever worked together before, they had the same similar style of acting.
Well, you're very accomplished, and you've directed just amazing stuff. In this movie, though, you're working with Donald Sutherland and Brian Cox. I mean, these are such phenomenal talents that have been in this forever. For you as a director, was there ever an intimidation factor of how do I go about directing these kind of titans?
Yeah, I mean, there always is a little bit. You always think about it, but it goes away very quickly. I think the second you meet these guys and you start talking about the part, and you start working with them, you know, it goes away. It has to. You've got a job to do. You've got a movie to make, and so it has to. And quite honestly, it's much easier with these kind of actors because, if anything, they give you brilliance right out of the gate, and it's not hard to make it better. Even if you don't even need to make it better, but it's easier than a younger, inexperienced actor where you really have to do a lot of teaching and really fight to get what you need. So in a way, they're intimidating just because of their stature, and you think about all the movies that they've done. But on the other hand, I find them much easier to work with because they're, you know, if you know what you want as a director and convey that to them, then they can give it to you, you know, very easily.
Do you find that the great directors the great actors that they crave direction?
You know what? I don't know if they crave direction, but they appreciate it. I mean, you know, they want some kind of feedback. That's what you're there for. I mean, you're their ears and eyes. They can't see themselves. I mean, they can only feel like what they're doing. I mean, you know, you look at a person like Keifer, and you know, he said this before. He doesn't watch anything. He doesn't watch dailies. He doesn't even watch a finished product. One of the first 24s that he ever saw was when we were doing a commentary for a DVD together, and he sat, and just before we started, he looked at me and goes, "Yeah, this is the first show I've ever seen," and that was in year 5. And so, and I'm telling that story because he realized, you know, he trusts you. That's the trust factor that he has in you. So as a director, that's what you're there for. You're not there to tell them how to act. I mean, especially when you're dealing with, as you say, the quality actors I have. You're there to help them along the way. You're there to reinforce You're there to throw them a little nugget. You're there to see something that they did inadvertently, and you want to say, gee, that was great. I think we should do that again, or maybe let's go here with it. That's what you're really there for. I mean, that's how I work as a director. I really trust in the people that I hire to do their job.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned 24. So I wanted to ask before I let you go, are there plans to reboot it? Do you have anything to do with that anymore?
There is, and I might be involved. I'm not at the moment. I mean, it's a Fox show. They own the rights, and they own all of that. They're in coordination with Howard Gordon, who ran it the last few years, and so they are rebooting it. There's an actor already hired, and it won't have Keifer in it, not in a full-time capacity. But it is a 24, whole new cast, whole new story, and it's happening. So I'm not involved in the pilot. I know that for a fact, but I might be involved later. It's in discussion.
That was such an amazing and had to have been an incredibly challenging show to do. Is working in that format, does it feel like you're making an independent film every couple of weeks?
Yeah, it really did. It was really difficult, but I think that's why many of us stayed on as long as we did, because you do want the challenge also. And in television, it's very dangerous to get into a rut of shooting the same thing every week and putting the camera in the same place every week, and you just because of the volume that you're doing on a weekly basis. But 24 was never like that. I mean, we had new sets every year. We virtually had a new cast every year. So it was always different. It was always difficult. The writers just kept challenging us, and from the production side, we were very proud to do anything they could come up with, including, I think we landed a plane on the freeway. I mean, anything they could come up with, we're ready for the challenge, bring it. And so it was really great. And it takes a certain amount of, a certain type of person that you need in the crew, and from production to do that, and we had those people.